one of my more embarrassing stories, and I've shared, some of you guys have heard this actually, but it was really enjoyable. When I was in college, I went straight from college, and I was really disciplined in high school, so I went straight from college, straight from high school to college, and like in college, I found out like you can choose when you have your classes. Did you guys know that? You can do that. And so I was like, I'm going to put all my classes on one day. Oh, isn't that smart? I mean, because then you have 4 days off. How awesome is that? So I was like, I set all my classes, like literally, I had classes from 9 in the morning on Monday to 9 in the evening on Monday. This is my first semester. I mean, I had like 2 other classes or whatever, like on Thursday afternoon at 2 or something like that, from 2 to 2:15. And so of course I was like, for the rest of the week, it was my very first semester in college. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, had a great time all week long. And then you remember about all your assignments. I would remember about 4 o'clock Sunday night. I'm like, I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm totally and completely not. And so like on Sunday night, I'd be like, oh shoot. And so like, and like literally, I did this every week. I would put in an all-nighter on Sunday, because I would have an essay to write, and then I'd have like a test to study for, and I would do it all that night. And I would come in fresh the next morning at 9. And so I had been doing this for a little while, and like it was probably like midway through the semester. And my first class was a test, so I couldn't sleep through that. And so what I'd been doing was I would go to my 9 o'clock class, 9 to 10, and then I'd have a 10:15 class or something like that. And this was this huge, poetry class. It was like hundreds of people and stuff like that. And there was this, big circular room or, semicircular room. So I'd sit in the back of the room and just be like, this sounds great. And sleep through the whole thing. But there was one day when I was like, you know what? If I don't start staying awake through this class, I'm going to fail this class. And I don't want to do that because my parents are paying a lot of money for this. So I decided, okay, today I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to stay awake in class. So I was like, usually there's like everyone goes in the back of the thing, and there's like a few people smattered throughout the front. So I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit front and center. So like the podium's up here, I'm sitting front and center, and there's like maybe 3 other people, and then everyone else is in the back. And I'm doing one of these things, like I open my book, I'm like, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to learn some poetry. I'm going to do it. And so I'm listening to my professor, and he wasn't really like the most interesting guy ever, in the sense that like he almost had a bit of an accent, and he would read poetry. It was like an hour and a half. He would read like romantic poetry, and then she said to him, it was like one of the, and so I'm sitting here, I'm sitting right in front, I'm like, I'm going to stay awake, and like, but then I hadn't slept all night. So that starts to kick in, and like no amount of caffeine will do it. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like doing what, one of these things, like, when you're like, and actually, like, I'm trying to imagine what my teacher was looking at as he's watching this kid being like, and you know what I mean? Like, you do the nod thing and stuff like that. And so I'm doing that. I'm making a valiant effort. I'm sitting there, and he's doing it. I'm saying, I'm going to do this. And so, but then, despite whatever, like, I start to do the nod-off thing, and I do it a bunch of times, and finally, I start to kind of lose it. And I start to fall asleep. And forgive me, I'm starting to fall asleep. And you guys ever, when you're sleeping, do you ever have that thing where you, in the sleep state, you're kind of what's happening in the outside world starts to creep into your dream? And people are talking, and the guys, and then she said to him, I loveth thee. And, and I'm hearing this in my thing, and this is happening in my brain, and I'm like, trying to, and then, have you guys ever had, when you're dreaming and you're falling? You know that thing? So in my dream, I'm like, but I'm falling. And so like the professor takes a pause. And it's like a dramatic pause. It's like a middle of a poetry reading. Think of it like everyone's hanging on his word. And then she said, and I went, bah! Like caught myself and like grabbed the thing, wiping drool off my mouth and stuff. And like 300 people all turn and look at me. And the other thing that happens, have you ever noticed, I don't know why we do it, but have you ever noticed that like when someone calls you in the middle of the night and you pick up the phone, You try, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but you try to pretend that you weren't sleeping. Do you know, because you can't answer in that, you know, you have to like, blah, 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 hello. No, I was up. No, it's great to hear from you. I was hoping you'd call. I was waiting by the phone. It's cool. But, you know, you do that thing because you have no voice control. And so there was this girl sitting like a couple seats away from me, and I was thinking she just saw me drool on myself and spray. And so I was like, man, I want to impress this girl, so I've got to tell her I wasn't asleep. But I didn't realize I didn't have voice control. I hadn't done my warm-up, so I kind of turned to her and said, I wasn't sleeping. And she gave me this look like, don't ever talk to me again. So yeah, it's a pretty embarrassing story, but it's true. Pretty embarrassing. So all that to say, fall asleep and I will embarrass you in this. I want to tell you a story, and I've only recently started sharing this. It happened years ago, but and then I'll say 16 more points and I'll be done. Just kidding. But it's actually really meaningful to me. But I remember there was this time, and it's just such a cool thing, and it's so intimate to me that I didn't share it very much. But I felt like a release to start sharing it. And I was in Idaho Falls, where I lived for 5 years. I used to rock climb a lot. You know, we found this great place, and it was like this canyon where you rappelled or hiked in, like literally, like was whole walls worth of stuff from the very easiest climbs to the really hard, challenging climbs, and we would be out there all day, and I would call it youth ministry. And I'm taking kids to teach them about God. Well, really, I just like to climb. But no, not really. It was really cool. And so we'd go out, and so I remember we'd go out day to day, and there was this one morning I was going out climbing with my brother-in-law, David, and who was actually in my youth group at the time, and 2 other guys, and they were LDS. They were Mormon guys. And we usually left really early in the morning, and I knew that day, these guys that I was going with were all really, really good, experienced, good climbers. And we had kind of planned, like, hey, today we're going to try, it was basically the hardest thing I had ever climbed, or attempted to climb, by several points. I mean, it was really a lot more challenging than I ever done. I woke up in the morning before I was supposed to go, coming off this kind of dream thing, and I felt like just this impression from the Lord. I don't know how else to describe it. I just felt like God was like, you're going to do this today. I'm going to give you grace to do this. And I was like, cool. And so I went there. I woke up and I went out there, and we started climbing. And so I let everyone else go first because, you know, like, I think God's going to do it, but let's just make sure. And so, no, I let them go. And again, these guys were all great climbers. And we're talking about these guys were really gifted. They got about a third of the way up. And then they couldn't do any further. It was just like, when you get really hard climbs, it's like climbing the inside of a bathtub. You know what I mean? Like little holes the size of a National Geographic or whatever. And so it was just really a brutal climb. And so these guys, you know, made it up there. And so I got up and I was like, well, you know, if God did this. So at the bottom of the climb, I was like, you know, hey, let's do this. So I prayed. I was like, hey, guys, we're just going to pray. And there's a bunch of Mormon guys like, what are you doing? And so I'm like, God, I just give this into your hands. I can't do this on my own, but I, you know, ask for your grace. You're a great God. You can do anything. You can get, you know, you do whatever. And I was like, let's give glory to God. And so I start climbing, and I'm feeling strong. I'm doing well. I got farther than any of them did. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. And because it was really hard. And I was sitting there, and then about a half away or 2/3 of the way up, I got to this place where it was kind of overhung. And I was like, you hold on long enough and you start to burn, and it was brutal, and it was just real athletic. And I was sitting there, I was holding on, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And so I kind of made a fast grab for something, you know, the closest thing I could find, and I reached my hand down. I was, again, kind of crunched up like this, and I couldn't reach it. I couldn't see around because I was kind of overhung. I couldn't see around. So I reach around, and I feel something, and I'm like, okay, I could probably hold on to that. And so I was about to hold on to it, when I kid you not, I hear the voice of the Lord, and just in my spirit, saying, no, not that one. Reach further. So I reached further. And he's like, yeah, that one. Grab that. I was like, okay. So I grabbed it, went to the next one. The next third of the climb, he led me up like that. Shift your weight. Okay, now. I mean, it was like that. It was like a coach. And it was like I'm just hearing the voice of the Lord. And again, this might mess with some of your theology, but I'm sorry. It's just what happened. I mean, I'm not that great of a climber. But But so I'm reaching around and I'm doing it, and like literally the whole way up, and like sometimes I can't see, and he's leading me around. And finally I'm like realizing like I'm gonna make this climb. I'm gonna do it. Oh my gosh. And I get to the top and I tag the pin, which is a sign that you've got it. And I'm like, praise God! God's so awesome! And I'm yelling down, you guys don't understand, he showed me where every hold was. And the Mormon guys are like, you're a freak. But we can't argue with the fact that you got up there. You know what I mean? It's like, what can you do? It's like, that's cool, you're a freak. I might be a freak. But God did something, and we had climbed together. They knew my ability and stuff, and I was just like, praise God, it's so awesome. And I was so overwhelmed by that. I mean, what is that, you know? And to me, that's the way Christianity should be. And so I got down, and we were getting ready to go, and I'm standing at the edge, overhang, looking out at this cliff, and seeing, and the guys are in the car waiting for me, and I just can't get it. I'm so on a God high. I'm just like, God is so amazing. And I'm out there, and I remember thinking to myself, this truth hit me. And I prayed it in my spirit. I said, God, I can't believe that you made the whole universe and that you knew where every little hole was, every little crack. And I said, God, I can't believe it. And then he spoke to me, and he said something which blew my mind. He said, son, when I created it, I knew you'd climb it. Dude, come on. How crazy is that? And how much is that the way we're supposed to walk with God? Because the God of the universe loves us. He doesn't just care about the big things. He cares about the little things and every tiny hold. And He wants to take over and walk through us and in us and be intimate. And He wants us to walk in His counsel on a daily basis. That's the kind of Christianity that I signed up to walk in. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do. It's just my conviction that when a word is spoken, when I speak or whatever, I want to give people a chance to respond. And so I know that God is speaking to some hearts. He's speaking to my heart. He's challenging me and encouraging me and convicting me. But I believe that God is calling those people who are going to embrace and say yes afresh. God, yes, I want to embrace that love relationship. I want to embrace that intimacy. I want to embrace that counsel, that no matter what else, I want to walk in the presence of God and the counsel of God and the intimate relationship with God. And if that's you, like it is with me, I would just simply encourage you, what I'd like you to do is we're going to stand up to our feet and we're going to say, yes, God, together. It's a statement saying, yes, we want this. So if it's you, let's stand to our feet and say yes to God.